Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Am I early?
We're all. I started it a little early. Malka is gonna jump on a little bit. Hi, Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah Simpson's joining us,
Okay, that's cool.
and she has her audio off.
I'm lucky that I managed to get this far. So hey.
I know. I'm gonna be doing a Zoom Seder, so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least you'll have other people with you.
No, I'll have my son. So yeah, I'll have my son.
Yeah, people will join in. What did I do here? What did I do? What did I do? I don't know. I touched something the wrong way.
Maybe your video button.
Hey, Mara.
Hey, Malka. You ready for me to turn it over to you?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm actually on the camera. Except I have my glasses on.
What's up?
Wait, let me get my glasses. Hold on.
Hi, Malka.
Hey.
How are you?
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm good. Thank God.
We're managing.
Okay,
Yeah.
Malka Scheiner, you are the meeting host.
Thank you.
And I'm recording it on my computer, so.
Okay. Thanks, Myra.
You're welcome, honey.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Malka. How are you?
I'm good.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Hi, Nancy. Good to see you. Well, I don't see you, but hear you. I hope everyone's doing well.
So far, so good. How about you?
Recent time. Good. Thank God. It's interesting situation.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess we'll wait a couple minutes for people to join, and then we'll start.
Hi, Malka. This is Amy Ross. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Amy.
So this is my first time joining one of your classes. And
Thanks for joining.
thank you. And I just wanted to know, in today's class, are we going to, how are you going to, how can I say it? What specifically are you going to be covering? Like, are we going over more about prayers about Passover, or kind of?
So we're gonna. Last week we kind of discussed the main theme of Passover and Matzah,
Okay.
and the overall themes of Passover. And today we're gonna discuss more about the Seder and about the 4 questions. Actually, we're gonna discuss the Monishtana, which is the 4 questions that the children ask at the Seder. And we're going to learn some deeper insights into that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Very excited.
Better mute.
Okay, I think we'll start, and I'm gonna, like we did last time, I'll mute everyone, and please unmute yourself if you have something to share or something to add. It always makes it more interesting when it's interactive and everyone shares their thoughts or questions, of course. So like we just said, today we're going to be discussing the Manishtana, which is the 4 questions that we ask at the Seder. And these questions are, I mean, for most children, it's like the highlight of the Seder, because it's specifically a part of the Seder where it's given over to the children, where the children have the role of asking the 4 questions to their parents. And it's like a highlight for most kids. So these 4 questions are, there's different opinions of what the order is, but the most famous, we'll go with the most famous well-known order, where the questions are, it's kind of the structure of the Seder, right? The Seder is 15 steps, and right in the middle is Magid, where we tell the story of Passover. And the 15 steps are, and we spoke about this a little bit last week, that it's like 15 steps towards personal liberation. So every single part of the Seder can be dissected, and there's tons of layers to every single part that we can look deeper and uncover like a deeper meaning and a spiritual significance for us. So the Manishtana is 4 questions, and the whole Seder is supposed to be this like dialogue between the children and their parents, and it's supposed to be, you know, it's not like a sermon or a lecture. It's supposed to be like an interactive experience where we taste things and we smell things and we experience it, we lean, and that's part of the 4 questions that we're opening like a conversation between the family or all the guests that are at the Seder. It's supposed to be an open conversation. So the 4 questions are, we'll go with the most common order, is that we start off, we say, what makes this night different than all other nights? And we say, on all other nights, sorry, I'm gonna mute. I'm hearing some sounds. Sorry. We say on all other nights, we eat chametz or matzah, but tonight we only eat matzah. And then we say, on all other nights, we eat all different types of vegetables, but tonight we only eat maror. And we say, on all other nights, we eat, we don't dip at all, but tonight we dip twice. And on all other nights, we either sit straight or we recline, but on tonight we recline. So something interesting is that we call these the 4 questions, but truthfully, they seem like they're answers in and of themselves, because the opening title is a question. We say, what makes this night different than all other nights? And then the child goes on to answer his own question and say, this is what makes all other nights, this night different from all other nights. On all other nights, we eat chametz or matzah. Tonight, we only eat matzah. So it seems like the 4 questions are actually kind of 4 answers. The child is asking a question. He's saying, what makes this night different than all other nights? And then he continues to give 4 different answers of what makes this night different than all other nights. So we're gonna see what are the significance behind these 4 questions, and what do they mean in our daily lives. The 4 questions, the Manishtana, they were written by the rabbis of the Mishnah. They are the Arizal, who was a 2nd century mystic, one of the greatest Kabbalists in Jewish history. He actually said that the 4 questions are like a journey through the 4 worlds. In Kabbalah, it explains that there are 4 worlds, and each of the 4 worlds is like another spiritual sphere. And when we say the 4 questions, it's like traveling through these 4 spheres of 4 spiritual worlds. So we see that there's great significance behind the 4 questions and a lot of deep Kabbalistic explanations and meanings that we can derive from them. But the interesting thing is that the 4 questions are what, like we just said, they're more than questions, they're actually answers. And they are like a journey through from slavery to freedom, and they're going to take us from our current state to a more free, liberated state. And if we understand the spiritual significance and the meaning behind the 4 questions, we can really access that within ourselves. So we're gonna try to delve into the different, deeper, more profound meanings and significance of the 4 questions. So the opening line is, what makes this night different than all other nights, right? And in Hebrew, ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylot. What is different? What is special about this night? The word nishtana comes from the word shinoi, which means change. So essentially we're asking, it's a very deep question. We're saying, in what ways can I change, and what ways can I challenge myself tonight? What possibility is there for change tonight that is different than all other nights? So, in Judaism, a holiday is more than just a commemoration of something that happened in the past. It's actually a reliving of what happened, because the same spiritual energy that was in the world at the first Exodus is in the world at this moment on Passover when we celebrate the Seder. And it's like a reliving of that. So obviously we're not in a physical Egypt, we're not in physical slavery, but on Passover we can experience, just like at the Exodus, the Jewish people experienced physical liberation, we can experience spiritual liberation in our own personal life if we, tap into the energy that is there. So we'll start with the first question, right? We say, what makes this night different than all other nights? Like we said, it's like, what step can I make? What change can I make in order to be a more liberated, free person? And this is similar to what we spoke about last week. We say, on all other nights we eat matzah or chametz. Tonight we only eat matzah. And like we said in the last week's class, we said matzah represents humility and chametz represents arrogance, because the only difference between chametz and matzah is that they're made of essentially the same ingredients. The only difference between them is that the chametz was given time to rise, and the matzah was baked right before the fermentation process was about to happen. We bake it right away, so it was never given a moment to rise. So the chametz represents arrogance and being closed off to change, being closed off to growth. And that's the sign of an arrogant person, somebody who is unable to recognize their flaws and their faults, and therefore lives in a box. They live closed off to change, closed off to growth, not open or willing to hear new ideas or new ways of thinking, because they're just, they close themselves off like the chametz. And the matzah is the openness, to be open to change, open to growth, open to stepping outside of your comfort zone. And that takes a great deal of humility to, say, I'm doing something one way, I see things in one way, but maybe there's another perspective, maybe there's another way of doing things, maybe I can grow and change. That takes humility. And the first step of the 4 questions, the first step of our journey to personal liberation, personal growth, is saying, I can have a little bit of humility and open myself up to growth and open myself up to change. And being in a matzah state, being a matzah person, is being a person that is humble and open to all the possibilities that life has. And it takes vulnerability and it takes humility, but start off with, the 4 questions. We say, on all other nights we eat chametz or matzah. On all other nights, sometimes we can be in a matzah state, sometimes we could be in a chametz state. But tonight on Passover, we're only going to eat matzah. We're only going to be in this matzah state of mind where we focus on change and focus on growth and focus on getting rid of all of the limiting beliefs that hold us back from fulfilling our potential. So the first step is to eat only matzah, to only be humble and open and open to growth. And the second step, the second question is, we say on all other nights we eat different types of vegetables. On tonight we eat maror. So maror is a bitter herb. It's something that's difficult to digest. It's difficult to swallow. And the idea is that in life, sometimes we put up walls, we put up armor against things that are going to make us vulnerable or going to make us feel pain. And we close ourselves off emotionally towards things that could be painful or could be difficult or bitter and hard to swallow. And we say, I'm going to close myself off to those things and only experience bliss. But the truth is, in life, when we close ourselves off to the pain in life and we become indifferent, it makes us actually indifferent to everything. And a person can't, close themselves off emotionally to one thing and be open emotionally to other things. So in order to experience the beauty and the joy of life, we first need to experience the bitterness, the pain. And that's why we dip the maror in the charoset. The charoset is a mixture of apples and wine and nuts, and it's very sweet. And it's on our Seder plate because it reminds us of the bricks that the Egyptians made. The Egyptians made the Jewish people build. And we dip the maror in the charoset because we combine the sweetness and the bitterness. Because the paradox of life is that in order to experience joy and sweetness in life, we first need to be open to the bitterness and the pain. And the example is, when a person is, vulnerable, it could be seen as something weak or something painful to be open and vulnerable emotionally. But the truth is that nothing good can come without vulnerability. In order to have real deep relationships or connections or innovation to create something new, you first need that vulnerability. And the vulnerability might be painful. It might be uncomfortable, like the maror. It's bitter. It doesn't taste good. But what comes out of it is so much greater and so much sweeter. Like the charoset, it's so much sweeter than had we just, only had sweetness. Like the light that comes from darkness is so much brighter than had it always been light. Where the truth that comes from confusion is so much more life-changing than if it was always there. So when we combine the sweet parts of life and the bitter parts of life, and we say, in order to be open to all the parts of life, I need to experience both, and I can't close myself off to one, to these emotions and those vulnerable parts. We have to be ready to experience the bitterness, and that will lead us to the ultimate freedom and ultimate liberation when we, instead of shoving things down and pretending like it's not there, being real, being genuine and open to those things is what allows us to experience true liberation, freedom, and joy. And when a person is indifferent and cold and isolated, they isolate themselves from all the parts of life, not just the difficult parts. So when we eat the maror, we're saying, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to taste the bitterness of life, because that's going to lead me to the ultimate sweetness of life, the ultimate freedom and redemption. And it takes courage and takes strength, because it's not something easy. A lot of people define vulnerability as weakness, but that's not what it is at all. It's actually courage. It's actually strength. And it leads to things like empathy. You can't fake empathy. Empathy has to be real and genuine. But in order to be empathetic towards somebody, you first need to be vulnerable. You first need to say, where in my life have I experienced such pain? And then when you can identify that in yourself, you can say, I empathize with you because I've felt that as well. But that takes pain, that takes vulnerability. It takes tapping into your emotions, being emotionally exposed, and saying, then you can create that relationship that only comes through the pain of being vulnerable first. So the second step we say is, we got to taste the maror. We have to taste it, the maror with the charoset. We need to taste the bitterness with the sweetness. And then that's the second step towards our freedom. The third step is, on all other nights, we don't dip our foods, but tonight we dip our foods twice. So what we're saying is, on all other nights, throughout the year, very often, we can be doing something, or we can be in a physical place. Our body can be somewhere, but our mind is somewhere else. So we're experiencing our life, but not being fully present. Our mind and our body and our soul is not fully present. And we say on tonight, the night of the Seder, when we want to come closer to personal liberation and personal freedom, we need to fully dip in. What does that mean? We need to dip in and submerge our body, our mind into this experience. We need to be fully present. There's, in life, there's always a tomorrow to worry about. And there's always something that we're worrying about, either feeling shame from the past or feeling worries about the future. And the truth is that the only moment that is really matters is the moment right now, because this is the only thing that exists. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, he explained that God recreates the world at every moment. It's not just that God created the world and then he left. Actually, the truth is, he says, God creates the world every single moment. At every single moment, God is recreating the world anew. And based on his teachings, we see that the moment that we're living in is really the only moment that exists. And if God is creating the world right now, then this moment matters. This moment carries great significance. And if we can tap into that moment and be fully present, then we can live life fully. Like the most important person that you're ever going to talk to is the person that you're talking to right now. And the most important moment is the moment that you're living right now. And the most important experience is the experience that you're living right now. And sometimes it's hard to live this, especially in these times when not everyone is feeling so productive. But to realize that God is creating this moment for a reason. And if this moment had no significance, then God wouldn't have created it. The fact that God is creating this moment and putting me here with these specific people and this specific circumstance, it means that there is significance that I can give to this moment. There's an opportunity here. There is a lesson to be learned or growth that I can, tap into. And if we live in the present and we are fully submerged, like we dip twice, the dipping twice represents being fully present, fully submerged in the experience with your mind and your body, being fully there. That is another step to personal freedom, that we can live life in the moment and be fully aware and present in every moment. What you can accomplish in 3 minutes of being present in a moment is so much more than if you're, in 3 hours of not being present. If you have a conversation with somebody, you can have a short conversation, but if you're both fully present, you can get so much deeper than having a conversation with somebody for 2 hours where nobody's present. So presence of mind, presence of body, and presence of soul in the moment is something important to lead us to personal freedom, that we let go of the shame and the worries of the past and the worries of the future, and we live in the moment. So this leads us to the fourth question. The fourth question, well, we said it's an answer as well. We say, what makes this night different than all other nights? On all other nights, we sit or we recline, but tonight we only recline. And this means that on all other nights, sometimes we box ourselves in. And we say, this is the way I am. This is what I can and cannot do. These are my limits. And tonight we recline, and we show ourselves how much we can really stretch and how much we can really affect in our life, because our soul is a piece of God and God is infinite. So the fact that we have a piece of God, a soul within us, means that our potential and our capabilities are really infinite, and we don't even realize the impact that we can have on the world around us and the people in our life. And when we live, with in a reclining way, in a way where reclining was like a symbol of freedom, because a free person is somebody who can know their capabilities, know their potential, and say, I know how much I can stretch. I know how capable I am and how powerful I really am. I mean, think about the coronavirus even. Like, one person started this entire world frenzy. Like, the fact that one person physically was able to affect the entire world just shows how much strength each person has, whether for positive or for negative. Obviously, this is in the negative, but in the positive, the positive is true as well, that if one person can negatively affect the entire world, how much more so one person can positively affect the entire world. And in a spiritual sense as well, if one person has the potential to affect so many people in so many different ways. And really, our potential is infinite because of we have a soul inside of us. So these 4 things are, the night of the Seder, we sit down and we say, tonight we're going to access these different things. We're going to learn about humility and learn to be humble in ourselves and open to change. And we're going to be vulnerable to all of the pain in life so that we can get to the sweetness and the beauty in life. And we're going to dip in, we're going to be present, and we're going to be mindful of the moment, and we're going to know what our potential is. And the interesting thing is that the Manashtana is said specifically by the children, because, well, adults may have to, learn these lessons once a year on Passover. Children live these lessons their entire life. They're all year long. A child is completely open to new experiences and new information. Like an adult might, or, as you grow older, you start to close yourself off. Once you start to solidify who you are in your head, you start to say, okay, if something doesn't align with who I am, then, I'm going to close myself off to it. And we shut out information that doesn't align with what we think is correct. So a lot of times we close ourselves off to new experiences and new challenges because we've solidified who we are. A child, on the other hand, is open to newness. They're humble, completely humble. A child doesn't have arrogance. So a child is open, like the matzah, it's open to change. Like a child is a sponge. They just absorb everything. So specifically, they're the ones to teach us the lesson of matzah, that on Passover and throughout the year, we have to be like the matzah. We have to be humble. We have to absorb information and be open to newness and change. And of course, a child is emotionally completely there. Like a child feels pain and will cry and scream, and a child feels joy and they'll laugh their head off and smile and be real and be themselves. And that's because a child isn't scared to be vulnerable. They're not scared to express how they're feeling because they're genuine and they're sincere. And the 3rd lesson was from the dipping, that a child lives in the moment. A child is fully present. They did an experiment. I think the Washington Post did an experiment a few years ago, like maybe in 2007. They took Joshua Bell, who was the most famous violinist at the time. He was a Jewish man, and they dressed him up as a beggar, as a homeless man. And they put him in the Washington subway station during rush hour, between 8 and 9 o'clock. And he played for an hour during rush hour. He played his most amazing piece of music from his $25 million guitar, violin. And he played this masterpiece. And they wanted to see how many people would stop and listen to the music. And it was a social experiment, so there were social scientists standing by to watch what would happen. And what they found was, out of the thousands and thousands of people that passed by, nobody stopped. There was maybe a handful, 4 or 5 people that stopped to listen to the music. But they said there was one demographic that constantly stopped to listen to music. Almost every single child that walked by at that time stopped to take in the music, because they noticed that there was something unique, there was something special going on. And a child has the presence of mind to realize there's beautiful music playing. And the adults were so, rushed to get to work and busy and preoccupied, and they didn't even notice that the most famous violinist was standing right there playing the most beautiful masterpiece. And these same adults that would probably have spent hundreds of dollars to hear him play at a symphony, they rushed by him without even noticing. But it was the children, like almost every child that passed by stopped to listen, because they realized they were in tune with the music that was playing. And if we tune into the moment, we'll realize that there's beautiful music playing at every moment, and we just have to realize that it's there. That's all it takes. You don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to see it in concert. You just tap into it in that moment. And lastly, children are, they know their potential. They don't have anything holding them back. A child feels like they can do anything. A child is they don't have the same armor and blockage that they put up for ourselves. They have an openness to life and this freedom that they feel like they're capable of doing anything. They have wild dreams and amazing ideas because they don't close themselves off to these things. They stretch themselves wide. And the idea of the 4 questions really is that they're more than 4 questions and they're more than 4 answers. They're actually 4 challenges. The Haggadah is telling us these are 4 challenges that you can try to implement into your everyday life. And it's not easy. It's not something that it takes hard work. But if we tap into these 4 challenges, they're like 4 invitations. The Haggadah is inviting us to come and work on these things. And they're more than 4 questions. They're actually 4 challenges that we can challenge ourselves. The Haggadah is challenging us, and the lessons of Passover are challenging us to work on these things and to open ourselves up to these things, because when we do, we can experience real freedom and liberation. So I give us all a blessing that we can tap into these things and be more humble and open to new experiences, that we can be present and we can live in the moment, that we can be vulnerable and open to the hardships of life, because when we overcome them, we reach the real joy and sweetness of life. And God didn't create us to be perfect human beings. He didn't create us to be perfection. If he wanted perfection, he could have had the angels. Angels are perfect, but God doesn't want the angels. He wants us. He wants human beings that struggle and taste bitterness sometimes, but the bitterness is dipped in sweetness, because overcoming that bitterness is what brings us to the ultimate sweetness. And of course, we should know our potential, and we should never, hold ourselves back from what we can really accomplish in this world. And I hope that this Passover is very meaningful for everyone. And I hope that we can integrate the lessons of Passover into our lives and bring it with us through the rest of the year, and use it to make our life more beautiful and meaningful. And yeah, happy Passover. It's coming up right Wednesday, and it's unfortunate that we can't all be together for the Seders, but hopefully next year in Jerusalem, or this year. We still have a few days to get there. Thank you all for joining.
Toda rabah.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Malka. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was fabulous.
Thank you, Malka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Malka, that was amazing.
Okay. Wishing everyone well, and health and happiness to everyone. Bye.
You as well. Hugs
Thank
to
you.
you. Virtual hugs.
Thank you. Virtual hugs. Yes, indeed.